Chapter 1, Born of the Unquenchable Flame. Feel the heat of the burning sky. Hear the first cry of a god born not of a womb, but of fire. See, in the heart of the firmament, a red flame, not of destruction, but of creation. Within it, a fire, within the fire, a red-haired boy, Vahagn. His eyes shine like twin suns, his hair burns like tongues of flame. In the pre-Christian traditions of ancient Armenia, a people shaped by rugged mountains, rivers that cut through stone, and skies bordering on the divine, Vahagn is not merely a god of war. He is the embodiment of the nation's indomitable spirit, son of Aramazd, the ordainer of the heavens, and Astgik, the goddess whose tears become stars. His birth was not celebrated with bells or cradles, but with thunder and celestial flame, a cosmic act of resistance. According to the Song of Vahagn, preserved by the historian Moses Koronatsi in the 5th century AD, the universe trembled at his emergence. In the middle of the sky, a red flame, / in the middle of the flame, a red fire, / in the middle of the fire, a red-haired boy, / with eyes like suns and hair like flames. At that time, the Armenian mountains were haunted by the Vishaps, serpentine dragons, children of primordial chaos, who stole clouds, dried up rivers, and threatened to extinguish the spark of civilization. Vahagn came to confront them, but not with hatred. His heroic act was not to kill, but to steal. He took from the Vishaps the celestial straw, the sacred fire of creation, and scattered it over fields, homes, and borders, returning to the people not only protection but identity. For the ancient Armenians, fire was not a weapon, it was memory, language, soul. It was what kept alive a culture surrounded by empires that sought to extinguish it. Now, as the Vishaps stir in the depths of the mountains, sensing the scent of the god who challenged them, Vahagn prepares for his first confrontation. But he does not wield a sword. He carries with him a question that defines his destiny. What shall I do with the chaos, destroy it, or transform it into fire? Chapter 2, The First Sacred Theft. Smell the sulfur and melting snow on the slopes of Mount Aragats. Hear the crunch of scales against stone, the damp breath of a creature that has slept for centuries. See, in the shadows of a cave carved by time, golden mounds of straw gleaming as if they contained the sun itself. This is the lair of the first Vishap, not a fabled monster, but an archaic force, half serpent, half cloud, with eyes that suck in light and teeth of frozen lightning. It is the mountain when it refuses to bear fruit, when it dries up the wells and swallows the song of the birds. And there, among the roots of the world, it guards the celestial straw, sacred residue of the primordial fire, capable of lighting ovens in the dead of winter, making wheat sprout in stony soil, and keeping the flame of memory alive in times of forgetfulness. The Vishaps hide it because they know, where there is fire, there is voice, and where there is voice, there is resistance. Vahagn arrives at the foot of the mountain at dusk, naked, covered only by the flames emanating from his skin. His sun eyes illuminate the path not to see, but to announce, I have come. His voice is the first thunder of spring. The Vishap awakens furious, but there is no long battle, no dance of swords. Vahagn does not want to kill, he wants to liberate. With a leap that shakes the abysses, he invades the cave. His flames do not burn, they purify, transform. As he fights, he thinks of the frozen hands of a mother, the extinguished forge of a blacksmith, the lost voice of an elder. He grasps handfuls of golden straw and, instead of keeping it, throws it to the wind. The living sparks fly over valleys and villages, land on rooftops and trembling hands. Where they touch, they ignite, where they land, they nourish. The Vishap roars, not in pain, but in powerlessness. It was not defeated by force, but surpassed by generosity. Vahagn emerges from the cave, his body marked by the poisonous mist, but his eyes brighter than ever. However, the first theft was only the beginning. In the most remote mountains, the primordial Vishap has already felt the wind change. He guards not only straw, he guards the mother flame, the original fire from which all others are born. And, with a voice that makes the stars tremble, he utters, Let the fire child come. I will swallow him, and the world will return to silence. Chapter 3, Son of Heaven, Brother of Thunder. Feel the weight of the silence that precedes the storm on the heights of Mount Ararat. Hear the buzzing in the rocks, not of insects, but of the fire contained in the bowels of the earth. See, on the horizon, dark clouds coiling like awakened serpents. Vahagn walks. His feet do not mark the ground, the snow melts before he touches it. The wind, which once howled against the shepherds, now whispers ancient verses in his ear. He is not just a god, but the pact between heaven and earth, the fire that descended to serve, not to reign. In pre-Christian Armenian traditions, while Aramazd governs order, Astgik love, and Anahit fertility, Vahagn embodies the action that connects all the elements. He is the thunder that breaks the drought, the flame that rekindles the furnace after winter, the cry that raises a people threatened by oblivion. Now, he faces his greatest challenge, the primordial Vishap, guardian of Hrazdan, the mother flame, the first spark of the cosmos, without which domestic fires are extinguished, hymns fall silent, and the people forget their own name. This dragon is not a beast, but a living memory of the chaos before time. Vahagn knows he cannot defeat it with brute force. On the eve of the ascent, before a simple shepherd's altar, he touches a bowl of milk and honey, an offering from his mother, Astgik, and hears his inner voice, "You were born of fire, but bathed in tears. Do not fight only with flames. Fight with heart." In the distance, the rhythm of the blacksmith's hammers echoes like heartbeats. Swords are forged, yes, but also plows, sickles, and bells. The people, unknowingly, already support him, because Vahagn has always been among them, in the widow's oven, in the courage of the young man, in the warmth that keeps the stories alive under the moon. At dawn, the ascent begins. Each step echoes like a war cry and a sowing song. In the volcano's crater, the primordial Vishap awaits him like a living mountain, with eyes of lava and a voice of earthquake. "You stole straw. Now you want the mother flame," it thunders. "I don't want to steal it," Vahagn replies. "I want to return it, so that the people may use the fire to remember who they are." Faced with the threat of eternal silence, Vahagn advances, but no longer only with fury. He carries with him the honey of Astgik, the steel of the blacksmiths, the song of the shepherds, all that chaos can never comprehend, the beauty of what is protected. And before the mother flame, which pulsates like a cosmic heart, he will face his most difficult choice, to keep it for himself, or to spread it to all, even if it consumes him entirely. Chapter 4, The Unkept Flame. Feel the heat that doesn't burn the skin, but the soul, the heat of the mother flame pulsing in the heart of the volcano. Hear the silence imposed by the primordial Vishap. The rivers have silenced their song, the birds have lost their voice, even the wind has shrunk in fear. See, in the center of the crater, a sphere of golden fire floating above the lava, not like an ordinary flame, but like the very pulse of the world. Hrazdan is living memory, the first name spoken in Armenia, the sound of the first drum, the smell of the first bread, the gleam of a mother's first gaze upon her child. The dragon envelopes her with tentacles of black mist, not to destroy her, but to imprison her in oblivion. "She is mine," it growls, its voice echoing in the caverns of time. Vahagn, however, responds clearly, "Fire that is not shared, is not fire. It is ash waiting to be born." Faced with the challenge, Vahagn advances not with fury, but with reverence. He touches the mother flame not as a thief, but as a son, and, instead of guarding it, he embraces it. The flame recognizes him, it is the fire that ignites, not that consumes. Visions flood his mind, children around campfires, old men telling stories, women singing as they grind grain, warriors kissing the earth before battle. It is this sacred fabric of communal life that chaos tries to extinguish. Then, Vahagn does the unthinkable. He breaks the mother flame into 1,000 luminous fragments and blows them upon the world. The sparks land on furnaces, forges, and devoted hands. "You destroyed it," accuses the dragon. "No," replies Vahagn, serene. "I multiplied it. Now, every home is its temple. Every heart, its guardian." The volcano awakens, the mist dissolves, and the song of a bird breaks the silence. Vahagn, exhausted and human in his frailty, descends the mountain knowing he has won, but that the chaos has only receded. When the people forget the value of fire? "I will be waiting," whispers the Vishap, sinking into the depths. Vahagn understands, his role is no longer just that of a warrior, but that of a guardian of continuity. However, his triumph brings shadows. For the kings, seeing the people strengthened by a fire they cannot control, will feel fear. And they will begin to erect walls, not against foreign enemies, but against the very soul of the people, against the common flame that unites them. Chapter 5, When Kings Fear the Fire of the People. Smell the sweet smoke rising from the chimneys, not from war forges, but from homes where cooking, singing, and prayer take place. Hear the drums, not of battle, but of harvest, rhythmic beats celebrating the wheat sprouting where before there was only stone. See, on the mountain slopes, candles lit on domestic altars, each guarding a fragment of the mother flame. The people flourish. But in the stone palaces, the kings watch, and fear. Not the bishops, but Vahagn. The fire he returned is free, untamed, indifferent to crowns and decrees. It does not serve power, it serves life. In secret meetings, generals and advisors decide to act. They forbid bonfires at crossroads, tax ritual firewood, seal domestic altars, and decree that Vahagn's name be erased from songs. But the gods do not die when they are forgotten, they die when they are not lived. And Vahagn still lives, not in official temples, but in the hands that, even under threat, light a candle hidden beneath the bread. In a village to the north, Ani, daughter of a blacksmith, granddaughter of a singer, keeps a brazier hidden under the floor of her house. Every night, she feeds an ember with a fragment of the mother flame that her grandfather preserved. She asks not for wealth or vengeance, but for memory. Vahagn, do not let them forget what fire means. He hears her. He comes not as thunder, but as a weary traveler, with dusty feet and the gentle scent of leaves burning in spring. Ani recognizes him. Between bread and water, she asks why he does not confront the kings. One does not fight fear with more fear, Vahagn replies. If I burn the palaces, the people will lose hope. But if the people keep the fire within themselves, no king can extinguish it. Before leaving, he drops an ember into his brazier. It glows brighter than all the others. Burn low, but never go out. As he departs, Vahagn raises his eyes to the stars. He knows that the kings are not his enemies, but symptoms of a deeper fear, the dread of a people who remember themselves. However, the wind is already shifting. From the west blows a new threat, not of swords, but of foreign faith. A belief that does not recognize gods born of flame, that will call Vahagn a demon and try to erase his name forever. But fire does not die when forbidden. It only learns to burn in secret, and to wait. Chapter 6, The Name That Will Not Fade. Smell the strange incense mixed with the familiar smoke of the domestic altars. Hear the new chant, not in Armenian, but in Greek and Latin, with prayers that proclaim a single god and condemn the idols of fire. See, in the city squares, wooden crosses erected where bonfires were once lit in the name of Vahagn. It is the 4th century AD, and Armenia has become the first Christian nation in the world. Temples fall, priests fall silent, ancient hymns are replaced by psalms, but the people resist in another way, not with swords, but with sacred silence. In the mountains, shepherds leave offerings on the Vishapakar stones, now disguised as simple boundary stones. In the homes, mothers blow on the embers not to extinguish them, but to hide them, and on winter nights, grandmothers tell stories, replacing Vahagn's name with Saint George, keeping the same hero, the same dragon, and, above all, the same fire. Vahagn observes everything from atop Mount Aragats. His brilliance has faded under the weight of the new faith, but he doesn't feel betrayed, he feels transformed. He understands what the bishops ignore: gods don't die when renamed, but when they cease to be necessary. And he is still necessary. In a forgotten village, a boy asks why St. George killed the dragon. His grandmother answers, in a low voice, not to kill. To steal the straw, and give fire to those who were cold. The boy doesn't understand, but he remembers the phrase, and Vahagn smiles, because he knows that, as long as there are those who remember that the hero stole to give, not to destroy, his spirit lives on. Still, there is pain, seeing his name erased, his altars buried, his chants reduced to whispers, and knowing that even those whispers will one day fall silent. On a moonless night, he visits the last ruined temple, where he finds the last priestess who still knows his true name. "Have you come to say goodbye?" she asks. "No," he replies. "I have come to sow." He gives her warm ashes, remnants of the fire stolen from the bishops, and asks her to bury them at the roots of the vines. In the spring, these vines yield the strongest wine in the region, red as flame, hot as courage. Vahagn doesn't need temples, he needs embodied memory. But the world never stops changing. Empires will come, wars will rage, the Armenian people will be scattered like ashes in the wind. And then, the deepest question rises, like smoke from a forgotten altar: when there are no more mountains, no more villages, no more language, will the fire still burn? Chapter 7, Fire in the Diaspora. Smell the tobacco and incense mixed with the salt of the sea, not the Mediterranean, but the New World, where strange languages roll through the streets. Here, in an alley in Istanbul, Beirut, or New York, a grandmother whispers in ancient Armenian as she lights a black and red candle. See, in the hands of a young man born far from the mountains, a medallion with the image of St. George, but whose inscription, in hidden characters, reads, "Vahagn is ours." The people were dispersed, but the fire was not. For centuries, through invasions, forced conversions, and the trauma of the 1915 genocide, Armenians took with them more than books or gold, they took the domestic fire. Not as a public worship, but as a sacred gesture. In the homes of the diaspora, the oven is still blessed before the first bread of the year, wine is poured as an offering to the ancestral land, and, in moments of despair, someone always whispers, "Vahagn is with us." He doesn't answer with thunder, he answers with unexpected courage. In a refugee camp in Syria in 1920, Sairon buries a clay pot with live embers brought from Van. For weeks, he feeds the fire like a child, hiding it under sour bread when the soldiers come to search. At night, he gathers the children and tells the story of a red-haired god who stole straw from dragons to warm the people, without pronouncing his name, but everyone knows it. Vahagn observes not as a distant god, but as a living presence in the gesture. He finally understood his true function, not to be worshipped, but remembered as a force that protects what is fragile. His fire is now in the eyes of the mother who teaches the language under threat, in the fingers of the young man who records forbidden songs, in the voice of the poet who writes Vahagn as a metaphor for resistance. Even in Soviet Armenia, where temples were closed, peasants left handfuls of straw at crossroads, for the wind to carry away, they said. But everyone knew, it was for him. Because Vahagn was never just a god of war, he is the spirit of cultural survival, what prevents the people from dissolving into oblivion. But now, in the 21st century, a new challenge arises, no longer kings or empires, but voluntary silence. Young people of the diaspora question, why maintain traditions that no one understands? Why speak a language that doesn't provide employment? Why light a fire for a god who perhaps never existed? Vahagn listens, and is not offended. He knows that true faith lies not in blind repetition, but in conscious choice. If a young person today decides not to light the candle, but to write a poem about the fire, isn't that also an altar? He waits not as a judge, but as a witness. Because fire doesn't need temples, only someone who still wants to light it. And soon, a young Armenian, born in Paris, will return to his ancestral land. He will climb Mount Aragats with a lighter in his pocket, and a question in his heart, will it still burn? Chapter 8, The Lighter on Mount Aragats. Feel the icy wind cutting across the young man's face, not as an enemy, but as ancestral memory. Hear the silence of the stones of Mount Aragats, which hold centuries of prayers, invasions, and survival. See, in his trembling hand, a cheap black plastic lighter, and, beside him, a handful of dry straw that his grandmother gave him before she died. His name is Era, born in Paris, raised among subways and memes, speaking Armenian with a French accent, never having entered a pagan temple, but dreaming, since the age of 12, of a god with flaming hair. His grandmother told him stories not as religion, but as poetry of resistance. Vahagn is not a god of war. He is the fire that refuses to go out, even when the world blows with all its might. Era didn't believe, but he never forgot. Now, at 25, he's back in Armenia not for tourism, but for an intimate quest. He wants to know if the fire still exists, or if it was just a metaphor. Upon reaching the summit of Aragats, the highest peak in Armenia, where Vahagn confronted the bishops, Era feels something strange, not loneliness, but presence. There are no thunderclaps, no magical flames, only snow, rock, and the wind whispering in an ancient tongue. He kneels, places the straw on the ground, and lights his lighter. The flame is small, trembling, almost goes out, but it endures. In that instant, Era understands, the fire is not in the myth, but in the choice to light it. He doesn't invoke Vahagn with words, but with gesture, memory, and courage. And something happens, not miraculous, but profound. The flame is reflected in his eyes, which for a second shine like those of someone who remembers. In Armenian traditions, it is said that Vahagn does not appear to those who call upon him aloud, but to those who act like him, stealing fire from chaos to give warmth to others. Era doesn't know this, but he is doing exactly that. On the descent, he encounters an elderly shepherd who, seeing his hands still smelling of smoke, smiles and says, "So he still lives." There are no questions, no doctrines, only bread and salt shared. That night, Era dreams of his young grandmother, lighting an oven in a now-vanished village. She looks at him and says, in pure Armenian, "The fire is not in the mountain. It is in you. Take care of it." He wakes up with tears, not of sadness, but of belonging. Upon returning to France, he carries with him something that no passport can record, the inner flame. In his Parisian apartment, he will teach his nephews to light a candle on the eve of the Armenian New Year and to whisper, before blowing it out, "Vahagn is ours." But Vahagn's destiny does not end with the memory of a people. It ends with the fulfillment of his cosmic role, not as a forgotten god, but as fire that, having completed its cycle, prepares to transform again. Chapter 9, The Last Theft. Smell the scent of dry leaves burning in autumn, not as destruction, but as purification. Hear the silence that is not empty, but full, the silence of an almost complete cycle. See, on the horizon of Mount Ararat, the sun setting like a flame that gathers, not extinguishes. Vahagn knows, his time as a visible god is ending, not through defeat, but through fullness. In ancient Armenian cosmology, gods are not eternal in the same body. Just as fire turns to ash, ash to earth, and earth to wheat, divine spirits transmute when they fulfill their function. Vahagn came to confront the chaos of the bishops, stole the fire, returned it to the people, and protected the memory through centuries of oblivion. Now, he sees that the people carry the fire within themselves, no longer needing a god with eyes of the sun, but hearts that choose to resist with kindness, memory, and everyday courage. It is time to withdraw. But first, there is one last act to perform, not against a dragon, but for the entire world. In the depths of the earth, where not even the bishops dare to go, lies the Tsavanarnar, the primordial sea of fire, source of all vital heat. Chaos is no longer in the mountains, it is in the hands of men, who use fire to burn forests, melt ice, and unleash rays of destruction. Vahagn descends, not as a warrior, but as a guardian who gives back. He finds the sea of fire pulsing with rage, about to retreat forever. He kneels and whispers, "Do not abandon them. They are still learning." Then, with the hands that once stole straw from dragons, he performs his last theft. He does not take flame, but takes a seed of silence, the principle of fire that contains itself, that warms without devouring. He blows it to the winds. It neither shines nor makes a sound, but where it lands, in a laboratory seeking clean energy, in a child planting a tree, in a mother teaching how to turn off the light, the fire changes its nature. It ceases to be a weapon. It becomes care. Upon returning to the surface, Vahagn is almost translucent, his sun eyes, soft as embers at the end of the night, his flame hair, gray as an ancestral mountain. He sits under the sacred fig tree where Askik once embraced him. "Is it done?" asks his mother's voice, now made of dew, star, and the song of a stream. "It is done," he replies. "They will still need you." "Yes. But not as a god. As a memory." That night, Vahagn ascends to the sky not as thunder, but as serene smoke. His body dissolves into golden particles that fall upon the fields of Armenia like a rain of sleeping embers. Whoever finds them will feel warmth in their hands, whoever guards them will hear, in dreams, the sound of distant thunder, and a whisper, "Steal the fire." But never for yourself. Always for everyone. But the world still needs heroes. And soon, a new time will dawn, not of dragons, but of choices. And someone, somewhere, will light a flame, and ask the question Vahagn always longed to hear. How will I use this fire? Chapter 10, The Fire Within Us. Feel the warmth not of a flame, but of a hand holding yours when everything collapses. Hear not the thunder, but the low voice of one who says, "It's not over yet." See, not a god in flames, but a young man lighting a candle in a dark room, and deciding not to extinguish hope. Vahagn did not die. He transformed. In the ancient Armenian tradition, gods do not disappear when they cease to be named, they merge with the soul of the people. Just as fire becomes warmth, warmth becomes life, and life becomes memory, Vahagn now lives where he should always have lived, in human choices. Not in war, but in the courage to protect the fragile, not in glory, but in the anonymous gesture of giving fire to those who are cold. His myth was never about slaying dragons, it was about stealing from chaos something that can nourish, and having the humility to spread it, not hoard it. Today, the dragons have changed form. They are no longer serpents in the mountains, but forgetfulness, indifference, the fear of being different, the silence in the face of injustice. And the fire that Vahagn stole? It is in the tongues that still speak Armenian, in the hands that prepare dolma with the recipes of their grandmothers, in the eyes that weep upon hearing the duduk, and yet, choose to sing. Even in those who do not know his name, Vahagn acts, in the student who resists cultural erasure, in the mother who teaches her son to honor his roots, in the artist who paints Mount Ararat not as a landscape, but as a living altar. Because Vahagn was never a distant god. He was, and is, the spirit of the people who refuse to be extinguished. His legacy is not in statues, but in acts, stealing time to listen to an elder, lighting a flame even a small one, choosing to protect when it would be easier to flee. In the end, Vahagn fulfilled his destiny not with a final battle, but with a fertile silence, the silence of one who knows he has already planted enough seeds. And now, he waits. Not on altars, but at everyday crossroads. In the question that arises when everything darkens, what will I do with this spark that has been given to me? If you use it to destroy, it will be extinguished. But if you use it to warm, illuminate, create, Vahagn will live again. This story comes from pre-Christian Armenian mythology, preserved in the fragments of the Song of Vahagn, collected by Movses Koronatsi and in the oral traditions of the peoples of the Caucasus Mountains. If it touched you, comment, what ancestral lesson do you take from it?